Israel and Hamas are officially at war. Barely a year after war broke out in Eastern Europe, now the Middle East has been thrown in disarray amid rising geopolitical normalcy between Israel and its Arab neighbors. The difference between Arab attitudes is staggering, where all the nations surrounding Israel had joined forces to try and break up Israel in its infancy in 1948. Countries like Saudi Arabia have actually called for immediate de-escalation of the situation after Hamas and anti-Israel forces in the Gaza Strip and other Palestine administered territories launched a massive attack on Israel. Prime Minister Netanyahu was quick to address the issue, declaring war against Hamas. Meanwhile, videos of various incidents of mercenaries parading Israeli people naked on the streets have been going viral on social media. The ramifications of this war are manifold, not just for global supply chains, but also for the delicate geopolitical situation in the Middle East. For now, however, the situation on the ground is simply horrifying. On a day observed by the Jewish people as Simchat Torah, a day supposed to be one of celebration and joy at the end of the week of Sukkot, Israel witnessed a roving band of mass murderers killing and burning their way through the country in the name of religion. What will happen next is anyone's guess, but we will endeavor to gain some insight into this situation with our panel of experts. Joining us on the show is Ambassador Bhaspati Mukherjee, former diplomat, Major General Dr. Shashi Asthana, former Additional DG Infantry, Global and Strategic expert, also with us on the program. Pathikrit Pine, International Affairs expert, joins us on the program as well. Last but not the least, Mr. Arjun Hardas, Senior Journalist, with us on the show as well. Thank you everyone for being a part of this conversation. Ambassador Mukherjee, I'll begin with you. Well, this is one of the biggest attacks that we have seen against Israel on behalf of the Hamas in the last few decades, if we can clearly say that. Mr. Netanyahu has minced no words. He has told the citizens of his country that this is war, and war is what we are facing at this point in time. But considering the kind of treatment being meted out to POWs by the Hamas is only going to make matters worse. With one war already raging in Europe, which has in a way debilitated our supply chains, how is this one likely to cause more harm when it comes to geopolitics?
Well, first of all, I'd like to recall that our Prime Minister has strongly condemned this attack and has said that India stands in solidarity with Israel. I think that Hamas must be rattled by the new political configurations in the Middle East, the rapprochement, for instance, between Israel and key Arab countries in that region, the fact that they have been relegated to a secondary place as far as power politics in that region is concerned, gives me the impression that there must be extremist factions within Hamas, which is itself pretty extremist in its ideology in general, to have brought about this cowardly and dastardly attack against Israel. I don't think we can compare it in any way between the Ukraine and Russia, because the Israeli army is very well trained and knows, unfortunately, throughout Israel's existence, they've had to deal with these kind of murderous attacks, and I'm sure that the manner in which they will respond will push the Hamas back. And moreover, I'm sure that now Israel, with its allies and friends, India and new friends in the Middle East, will try to have pressure put on Hamas also to back off, because it is not in Lebanon's interest to have such attacks being mounted from its territory. It's not in the interest of the Middle East to have this kind of dastardly attack, treatment of civilians, which is completely in violation of all international conventions, etc. So I think that there would be a strong riposte from the Israeli side, and after that, I think we would find over a couple of weeks that the Hamas would back off. They always do, actually. If you look, unfortunately, at the history of Hamas, they are not good at fighting a conventional war. They are a typical extremist group that attacks and tries to intimidate through violence, and then back off when they are met with sustained sustained counterattacks which pushed them back. A little bit like what we've had to deal with on our borders with our neighbor Pakistan for a long time. It's exactly the same tactics, jihadi groups coming in, doing what they think they can, then being pushed back. In this particular case, however, this is far, far more serious than an attack on Israel in a long time. I was trying to check from my past records. I think it's after a very long time that such a deadly attack has happened, and clearly Israel will have to respond very, very strongly. I'm sure it will do that.
All right, Mr. Anat Bernstein, CEO and co-founder of BDO, Israel-India Investment Banking and Consulting firm, also joins us on the program. Thank you so much for being here. Your initial reaction to this dastardly attack, which was started this morning by the Hamas. We have all seen those barbaric videos on social media as well. Mr. Netanyahu has firmly pledged that this is an act of war and it will be met with a worse kind of reaction that the Hamas could expect. What are your initial thoughts on what's taking place today in Israel and Gaza, of course?
I think that unfortunately the history repeats itself. We are mentioning today 50 years to the Yom Kippur, to the 73 war, which caught us by surprise, exactly on a Saturday, on a holiday. And again, the Israelis are going to fight Hamas and Gaza very seriously. And it's very unfortunate. In the Israeli media, they don't show the barbaric activities. We're trying not to watch it for now. You will probably see it. We are trying not to hurt our morale. But in Israel, the people is the army. And people are called for their units. I just brought my son to his unit. So yes, we are under war, and it's clear to you that we will win, of course. That's my initial reaction.
What kind of a reaction do you think that Israel would be preparing for at this point in time? Because considering the fact that Hamas has said that this is perhaps one of their biggest attacks against Israel, there obviously has to be a comeback from Israel as well. You've had skirmishes, you've had many battles going on from time to time, but so far this seems to be the biggest attack on the Israeli soil in recent memory. What kind of an attack do you think Israel is vowing for? In fact, the government has gone on to say that this will perhaps escalate into the complete extermination of Hamas.
I hope so. I hope so, in a sense that, yes, we are used to rockets, okay? I'm used to waking up in the morning with a siren in my neighborhood. This is not new to us, and we have Iron Rock, and we are resilient, and we are facing those rockets for years. The infiltration, the entry of Hamas terrorists into the kibbutz, into the villages, into the city of Afakim, this is something that I'm not young and I don't remember such attacks on civilians. So this is a major attack, and we will fight back, and we will do whatever we can to I don't know how to say it rightly in English, but to stop Hamas and bring peace to this region.
Right. You're quite right. Arjun Hardas, senior journalist, also with us on the show. Arjun, you know the history. This has been going on for quite some time. In fact, it all started in 1948. Bill Clinton in the year 2000, tried to have some sort of a peace treaty with Mr. Yasser Arafat and the then Israeli Prime Minister. Nothing really worked out. This conflict has also seen allies come and go for both the nations. How do you see the situation as it stands today after this attack?
Thanks. Here I'm here as a representative of the American Jewish Committee, not just as a senior journalist, as the India representative. So I'll speak on that behalf. 1948 is not quite the beginning of the time. Yes, the larger Palestinian Arab-Israeli conflict, so to say, started at that particular time, or actually much before that. But after the establishment of the State of Israel in 1948, that there has been different levels of escalation. This current situation started off in 2007, when, to put a date on it, this is when in 2005, when Prime Minister Ariel Sharon withdrew unilaterally without anything in return from the Gaza Strip, took away all settlements, including the dead who were buried there. Their graves were dug up and taken back to Israel. The Palestinian Authority at that time, the Fatah Party, were given factories, greenhouses, infrastructure to build up a better infrastructure there. Factories were given that they could do business there, and they could, get away from, do other things besides terrorism. Unfortunately, in 2007, the Hamas did a coup carried out a coup against the PLO, against the Fatah movement, against the Palestinian Authority, overthrew them, threw them literally off buildings, hung them from cranes, and the first thing they did, as soon as they took power, is they started firing rockets at Israel. So the concept of this fence and Gaza being the world's largest prison are the statements one has heard. Oh, they've been fenced in, they've been doing this, they've been doing that, the Israelis have done this, have they done that? Who started this thing? Had they taken over the territory, even if they had taken it over from the Fatah movement, from the Palestinian Authority, and turned it into something practical, it would have been different. No, they did not. The first thing they did was start firing rockets on day one. I have been to Sderot personally many times. I've been to Gaza as well. In Sderot, a rocket was fired when I was there. When I was looking towards Gaza, I'd say, oh, how close it is. And I timed it, 15 seconds to reach Sderot. Maybe 25 seconds to reach a couple of the kibbutz which are next to it, kibbutz Erez and a couple of others. This is how close it is. These people are not interested in talks. The Hamas charter very openly talks about the destruction of Israel. There is no talking to them. There is no conversation. There is no dialogue. And when you talk about the Arabs in terms of the Palestinian people and the Palestinian leadership, you mentioned Arafat, etc. For whatever the outcome came out eventually, they did have an agreement in 1993, the Oslo Accords, where there was a sort of a framework, at least in theory, of how they were supposed to work. Hamas is not part of that. Hamas is not interested in talking. Hamas is there, and the thing is, in Gaza, it's not just Hamas. You've got the Islamic Jihad. You've got the Izzeddin Islamic Brigade, named after one of their so-called terrorist suicide bombers. Mm-hmm. So they're not interested. And then the biggest thing is, when people say that, oh, they're miscalculated, definitely not. They knew exactly what they were doing. They knew exactly what the Israeli defense forces are capable of. They know exactly how the escalation is going to happen. They know how many civilians are going to die. They know how many of their Arabs in Gaza Strip are going to die. They don't care. As long as they can achieve, this is going to be talked about for years in the Arab world, in the Arab street. Oh, Hananiah, the man who managed to invade Israel, where the Arab armies could not in 50, 75 years. So his reputation is done so far. He doesn't care how many die. And what is going to happen in the next sometime? Army is not going to Israeli government is not going to announce it in advance. They will give objectives, they will give ideas. Their objective is, and there is nothing that anybody can talk about. Israel doesn't want any more, both sides should de-escalate, both sides to start talking. It's gone beyond that. If some people in the government have said that this is at the end is going to be the end of Hamas, it has to be that eventually.
All right, understood. Good points there. General Asthana, I hope you can hear me.
Yeah, certainly.
Couple of points, sir. Number one, was there a miss on behalf of the Israeli intelligence? Because 5,000 rockets is no small deal. And secondly, we all know this, but still I would want you to answer this question. Where is the Hamas getting all these weapons from?
Firstly, answering the first part, the rockets, the firing of rockets, I think Israelis are quite used to it. And even if they had some information, they
5,000, sir. 5,000 rockets. 5,000 rockets, sir.
Yeah, 5,000 rockets. So the magnitude of rocket which have been fired, I'm sure some logistics must have gone through, and they must be having some kind of intelligence. But then the fact is, Israel has a very good, shall I say, alarm system. And I have, in fact, seen all the places which Hardas was talking about, and studied those places as well, including their University of Counterterrorism. So the point is, firstly, they will respond, and Israel will use almost everything under its whatever arsenal they have, less nuclear weapons, to ensure that Hamas does not remain a solid force or force to reckon with or force to attack Israel. Because the normal attacks or shall I say terrorist attacks will continue. They have been continuing for very long, and I think that is something which is now. Let me change my topic to slightly different level. What is the strategic aim? The strategic aim of Hamas is that they were feeling that Arab world is getting closer to Israel, and therefore our Palestinian cause and our cause is going to get lost, and therefore we have to do something to ensure that this process of Israel getting closer to UAE or Saudi Arabia and that doesn't happen. So they wanted to do something big. Now this is what they tried to do. This unfortunately is against all the norms of the entire world, and I think the whole world will condemn it. India will also condemn it, and I think others have also done it, including Russia, including America. I think everybody is going to condemn that. The second issue is that it's not a good news for India. Strategically, we were now looking at the international, that is India, Middle East, Europe economic corridor. Now that can't happen unless Israel and the Arab world is on the same page. Now this kind of treatment, the fallout of Israel will be that Palestinians will be killed. Earlier, from 2000 onwards, almost 7,500 Palestinians have been killed, and Israelis figures are less than 1,100. Now, similar figures will appear after this war, and therefore there will be a problem wherein Arab world will perhaps think that I think it's becoming too harsh on the innocent Palestinians, because as Haridas was mentioning, it's not only on the West Bank. Fatah is governing the West Bank, and this attack certainly doesn't seem to be originating or seems to be in support of Fatah. So this is a Hamas initiative, and but the brickbats and the fallouts will be on all Palestinians. Now this is something which is going to create a little bit of problem, and that will also create, but at the same time there will be some pressure on Netanyahu also to escalate beyond a point, because whatever America and the Western world has tried to get all the Middle East countries together in some manner, and all their efforts will perhaps wane out because of this war. So there will be some pressure on Netanyahu also to go only up to a point and not beyond. That's what I feel.
All right, so Pathikrit, do you think that in a matter of time, the rest of the Arab world will also be obliged or be forced to take a side, have an opinion on which side they support? We have heard from Saudi Arabia, but the majority of the other Arab world is to respond. Do you think that they will gravitate towards the issues that Palestine has been speaking of for the past few decades, or do you think that this is just going to be something similar to what has happened in the past as well? There will be strikes and counter strikes, and then it will die down.
Vinit, first of all, this is not a terror attack. This is not a run-of-the-mill terror attack. This is a military-grade invasion, and which certainly has a very high level of logistical, arrangements and intelligence behind it. So I would not be surprised that Hamas, as an organization, suffering from blockades, could have done it alone without the support of certain external elements. So I'm sure there are external support to what is happening right now, and I would not be surprised if what Hamas doing right now is, supplemented by Hezbollah equally.
Pathikrit, there seems to be a problem with your connection. We'll come back to you momentarily. Colonel Ajay Singh, senior defense expert, also with us on the show. Colonel Singh, if you can hear me.
Entering me.
Okay, Pathikrit is back. Pathikrit, we lost you there in the middle. Please, go ahead.
So what I'm saying is that there's a possibility of Hezbollah, declaring a war on the right, same footing, and so Israel would have to deal on both sides. Secondly, when you have 5,000 rockets being launched, Even if you have an 80% kill rate for the Iron Dome air defense system, you would still have 1,000 rockets falling in on critical infrastructures of Israel, and there would be retaliation. So let me tell you what Hamas is going to do. Hamas, as Arjun rightly mentioned, exactly knows what they have done. There will be retribution, there will be brutal retribution, and there will be killing, and it would be the same Hamas which will then take pictures of the civilian casualties and tell to the world that, look, we are the victims. And this is what Israel has done. So the Abraham Accord should go. It should not happen. So the India, Middle East, Europe economic corridor should not happen. That is where the problem starts. Number one, because of the war with Russia, Ukraine. See, the war between Israel and Hamas, nobody cares about nobody has doubt about the outcome of the war. It is the consequence of the war that is important. So, a critical part of the India-Middle East economic corridor is the Haifa port and some other critical ports of Israel. If you cut off Israel from this entire corridor,
what about the rest of the Arab world? What about the rest of the Arab world?
Let me tell you,
they do have a soft corner for Palestine.
Vinny, let me tell you this: none of the Arab world countries would want Israel to be, to be beaten. Though it's not going to happen. None of them want Hamas to have an upper hand, because they know tomorrow the Hamas will do the same thing in their own countries also. So they want Hamas to be defeated. But it's a very sensitive issue for them. Even though discreetly many of the governments in the Arab world want Israel to do the needful, because it's a very sensitive issue, and if the popular uprising gets support from individual countries in the Arab states, they would fear an Arab Spring being repeated. So it will be very difficult for them beyond a point to openly say we support Israel and we do not support Hamas. So they have to take a very, very middle path. They also know that India-Middle East economic corridor is very much in their, it will help them to prosper as well. It is in their benefit as well. And this is a trap that Hamas is putting in. For this trap, and I'm telling you this, there are certain external elements. Please understand, I am not trying to point fingers, but what would have been the biggest casualty if the India-Middle East economic corridor would have come up? The Belt and Road Initiative. Who are the countries who are not part of it? Well, let's think about it. I'm not pointing fingers at them. Turkey, Qatar. We know what their stand has been on certain issues. So, a situation where, as Arjun rightly mentioned, the Arab and the Israeli world coming together, and even Saudi Arab thinking about creating a UAE out of Saudi Arabia in terms of prosperity, in terms of becoming an economic hub, moving away from the oil-centric, economy. These are great things for the world, but not good thing for those people who want the flare-up to continue. See, if this thing goes off in a few days, then people might forget. But if it continues, if it prolongs, then it has a tremendous impact on the sentiment of the Middle East. It would have a tremendous impact on the price of oil. It would have a tremendous impact on the commodity prices. And it would have a tremendous impact on the corridor's proposal, plan, execution as well. Who benefits out of it? Well, those countries benefit who were benefiting out of the status quo and the stalemate, those who were promoting Belt and Road Initiative, and those countries who are known to be supporting the jihadi organizations. Even if you dismantle, decimate Hamas, there is another organization which is going to come up and do the needful. This is where the problem is. I think till the time Palestine also accepts the right of Israel to exist, this problem is not going to go away. Merely pointing fingers on Israel is not going to help, and no sovereign country can accept and say that, okay, both sides to sit together and talk. Because this is a military-grade invasion by an organization which is proscribed as a terror organization by many countries. Yes, it is a sensitive issue. Yes, civilian casualties would happen, but the issue is the Arab world, what they would do discreetly and what they would publicly. I think there will be a thin red line difference between those two.
Let me take another reaction from Anat Bernstein into what Pathakrit has said. Anat, if you're there with us. Anat Bernstein, how are the people preparing for this long winter of war that Israel is staring down upon?
We are used to it. We are a country under attack since establishment. And we are used to the fact that the army, it's our kids and brothers and sisters are in the army. It's all of us. So we know that it's going to be tough, but I don't think that we have any alternative. I mean, the alternative, I wish we could do peace with whomever, but as Mr. Paine said, they don't want peace with us. And this is unfortunate. And I'll be happy if even India comes and help us in negotiation, in helping us bring peace. The US, that's the US role. Egypt is playing a role. But I think that also India, being a very good friend of Israel, can play a role in this local conflict.
Well,
And it's going to be a winter, and winter just started in Israel. But we don't have a choice. That's it.
you're absolutely right. India is Israel's good friend, and we're going to keep a close eye on what's going on over here in this war, and of course, make sure that you get the support that you need. Noor Shahada, founder of Extreme Poverty Combat Association, is also joining us at this point in time. Noor Shahada, if you can hear me, joining us live from Palestine.
Yes.
Please apprise us of the situation that's unfolding at this point in time. There's been a huge attack on Israel on behalf of Hamas. What's the reality and what is the situation as you can see from ground?
The situation in Palestine is very terrible. The Palestinian people is under the occupation from 76 years, and the Israeli don't give them anything. The right of the Israeli, they don't to know. They have a right of the Palestinian people. They want the right. They want a state. They want independence. They want like any people in the world. Israel, they don't care about anything in the world. They give the back for all the people in the world, for all the countries in the world, for the United Nations of the world. The Israel don't see anyone in the world. It's the result of the occupation of the Israeli occupation. It's the result of the Israeli occupation. What the Palestinians want to do? No hopes for any youth in Palestine. We can't do anything. Gaza under the siege since 14 years. West Bank, it's like Gaza. It's under the siege. All the cities is big jail. What we can do in Palestine?
Do you think there is any other way of dealing with this? You have been at war with Israel for so long. There have been efforts to placate this by various countries throughout the world. Put you across a table and talk. Do you think that's an option that's completely ruled out?
No, it's not the option. I prefer to sit on the table and discussing what we can do together, Palestinian and Israeli. At the end, we agree about the Palestinian right and give the Palestinian state like all the people in the world. I think it is the solution. I don't agree the violence, but the Israeli state, the Israeli occupation put the Palestinians under the pressure, and the people they don't know what we can do.
Let me get a response from Anat Bernstein before we wrap up on what you've just said. Anat, you want to respond to that? Of course, Noor has spoken about the Israeli occupation here.
Look, the India
Anat?
is
Okay. 1 second, Mr. Noor. 1 second, Noor. I want Anat Bernstein to respond to what I just asked.
I mean, it's really ridiculous what Mr. Sheda is saying. Palestine is not under occupation. They have a government. They are independent. Of course, there are challenges, but this is not an excuse for what they're doing. They need to come to the table clean, and it's ridiculous.
You are not speaking right. You are not speaking right. No, you are not speaking right. Yesterday, Tulkarem is under the Palestinian Authority. Yesterday, the Israeli army they was in Tulkarem and invaded the camp and they killed two people.
Can I ask a question to Mr. Noor?
Go ahead. Pathikrit wants to ask you a question, Mr. Noor. Mr. Noor, Pathikrit has a question for you. Mr. Noor, 1 second. Pathikrit has a question for you. Please hear him out, sir. Pathikrit, go ahead.
Mr. Noor, I am from India. And Mr. Noor, I am from India. And generally, people of India have always maintained good relation with both Israel and people of Palestine. My only question to you is this: as a Palestinian, do you accept the right of Israel to exist?
Yes. If the Israeli accept the right of the Palestinian, is the Israeli
we support the Palestinian cause, but I just want to ask: do you accept Do Palestinians like you accept the right of Israel to peacefully exist, and whether you condemn what Hamas has done or not?
It's
My
a
simple question.
simple question, Mr. Noor. Do you think Israel should exist, and do you think this attack was justified?
What you mean attack?
Do you think Israel should exist is what Pathikrit is asking you. You want to answer that?
Daily, the Israeli attacked the Palestinian cities and killed a lot of people. What you
It's
are
a yes
doing?
or no question, Mr. Noor. It's a yes or no question.
I can clarify the question.
Go ahead, ma'am. Basmati Mukherjee. Go ahead, ma'am. Go ahead, ma'am.
Let me clarify that Palestine has had an embassy in India for a very long time. And India would like Palestinians and Israelis to live in peace. But to live in peace, Palestine has to accept Israel's right to exist in security, and in return, Israel would negotiate a peace agreement with Palestine. Is that something that you accept? And do you also accept, because many Palestinians believe in Mahatma Gandhi, that nothing comes out of violence. So the kind of violence that has been perpetrated on Israel today, is that going to have a positive result, or is it going to make the situation in Gaza worse for the Palestinians? Could you answer that question, please? Mr. Shah.
I want to thank you about what you are speaking. I agree you. I am working with the Mahatma Gandhi methods. I believe about Mahatma Gandhi and what he are doing against the British when they are in India. I agree that, and I am working with Israeli together against the Israeli occupation. I know that India is a good, excellent friend with Palestinian, but we need to push the negotiation with the Israeli to give the Palestinian right. And from 1991, the negotiation with the Israeli, what they argued for Palestinian, anything
All right.
until now.
All right, okay, we've run out of time. Would like to thank everyone who's been a part of this very important, very profound and constructive conversation. Of course, we're going to keep a close eye on what's happening between Palestine and Israel.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.